Hi, this is Garibay, and today I want to talk about my Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition game, my current campaign, and the problems, the beautiful problems we're having. And I'll also ask your input on what we can do better, because we really got a real tiger by the tail here, and we want to do this right. So right now, I have a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition game. We're going into 4th session. This thing is just shooting off. We're having a huge amount of success with it. But there are problems. There are like emerging problems, and I want to keep this thing on the rails. I want to keep this going. So we run once a week. We run 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. on a work night. Okay, sometimes it's on a Monday, sometimes it's on a Wednesday. We shift it depending on what's best for the group, right? We have 4 players and 4 dungeon masters. Everybody plays a character, and everybody dungeon masters, right? So one of the things is we shift the seat of the dungeon master responsibility each week, right? So immediately, right? So I got my good friend Bill in on this, right? And he's like, yeah, let's do it, right? So session 1 was literally me running for Bill. Session 2, Bill had such a good idea, such a good time. He's like, okay, I'm DM next week, and I'm bringing a friend, right? And then he filled the 4th slot with a friend of both of ours from back. So we're full. We're capping it at 4. Because like we got 4 players and 4 simultaneous DMs, so we're keeping it there, right? So immediately, so it's not the real play. I have one player I'm having a lot of trouble with, right? But it's a good trouble, right? It's a good tension, right? I think it's good for me as a dungeon master to stretch and be more tolerant, And this guy's really pushing all my buttons, but he's really smart, and I don't want to. And he's bringing a lot of energy, and he's a cool dude, right? I want to make sure that but I may dislike him because he's like me, right? Like, I don't know if you guys have ever dealt with that, but so it is really fascinating. So everything's moving along. We're handling it the way we should, but one of the things. So we come to the 3rd session, right? And Greg is like, "Hey, what happens if one of these dungeon masters gets out of control and gives a +3 magical sword? What's gonna happen when the next dungeon master in the next game goes, your +3 magical sword turns into dust? What's gonna happen, Scott?" And I was like, one, and I know why this guy's saying this. So one, I am a Monty Hall GM. I give out a lot of magic items, and I'm not afraid to ramp up power on people very, very fast, because one is, I understand sessions don't run for 1, 2, 3 years, right? I'm expecting this thing to burn like a brilliant candle, to burn like a flare for 3 to 6 months, and then I think this game will end not because of anything in the game, but because somebody wins the lottery or gets abducted by an alien, or some reason outside the game shifts the group, and the game falls apart, right? And what I want to do is I want to pack in as much cool energy and as much awesomeness in the time we have, right? And I am not assuming that this game will go more than 3 to 6 months. And one of the things that's good about that is we do the cool stuff now. We don't wait, right? We don't have 10 pages of awesomeness written at the back of the notebook and 50 pages of crap in the front that we're dragging people through, and we get through 30 pages of crap, and then the 10 cool pages never happen, which is exactly what's happening with Nerd Immersion's game right now, right? And Nerd Immersion is fantastic. He's really good, but a lot of GMs, a lot of dungeon masters don't learn this lesson, right? Well, I've learned this lesson, right? So I said to him, right? I said, Greg, not his real name. I said, if we have that problem, then that means that this experiment is failing, right? And I said, what we're doing right now, 4 players, 4 dungeon masters, this relies on each player at the table giving the dungeon master, who is currently his turn, flexibility and range and trust, right? And then when you become dungeon master, or when the next person becomes dungeon master, they have every right to pendulum and undo everything that the last DM did. If that starts to happen, this game will not work, right? And it will fail. And this experiment that we are doing right now will be a failure. I'm confident that's not going to happen, but it's possible. right? And so that was my answer back, right? And so I don't do session zeros, but these kind of conversations will happen in the game. And I'm totally for that. I'd love to have a 5-minute conversation in the game rather than some horrible, by the way, we did no session zero, right? I eat my own dog food. I do not touch session zero. I agree with that super woke lady who said session zeros are just a whole bunch of triggering traumas for a whole bunch of people, right? Because you're saying, what don't you like? Let's talk about it, right? Like, and then you're like, now you're in a session with all your best friends talking about what triggers and traumas them. Oh, so much fun, so helpful, right? And this like super woke lady, who writes for D&D was like, this is a terrible idea and has been for a long time. I agree, session zero is the worst, right? But I don't mind having these conversations. So, was I right to tell Greg what I told him, right? Or should I have handled that a different way? Also, we got a tiger by the tail here, man. This is one of the best campaigns I've ever gotten. What's your advice for how we should manage this thing as it goes forward? Because there's already, sparks between the brilliant GMs who are here. I think we can make it work, and the one good thing why I'm excited is everybody at the table is just super excited for their turn to DM and having a pretty darn good time in the player seats. So, keep your fingers crossed for us, and I'll take any advice you got because this is a weird game. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.